All right. Okay, well, this is a really nice one. This is what's known as lungwort. So here we have it in flower. So what would you say some main key identifying characteristics? I always refer people to that almost like dog's like tongue. It's kind of like a little bit hairy. There's a bit of a texture. You can almost like hear it on the mic. Both above and below the leaf. It's got that texture to it. Slightly hairy. Beautiful little bluebell kind of like flowers.
No, those haven't drooped because it was picked. That's how they grow.
Yeah.
They're always hanging like that.
Right.
And when you think about plant names, anything with bane means bad, and anything with wart means good.
Yeah.
So this is called lungwort, which means it was used for all sorts of lung remedies, and it's a very close cousin to comfrey.
Oh, yeah.
Right, with the similar drooping flowers.
Right.
So you'll see it in cough syrups, and in the old days when they would take, I think, just honey and make, you'd roll it in whatever for powder so that they weren't sticky, like the old pharmacist's way of making pills.
Right.
Before we had all today's magic ways of doing things. You're probably doing that in your class. Making pastilles, is that what they were called?
Right. That's actually one I've taught it before, but I should really integrate that in. I do the herbal honeys, but yeah, basically putting in the herbs like a powder and then getting a paste. And yeah, absolutely.
So this is very common throughout the foothills in, I'm going to say, shady woods.
Yeah.
You'll find it very often mixed with Western Canada violet.
Right.
Same kind of turf. It's edible and high in protein, but it's got a distinctive, the longer you chew it, it's kind of a fishy taste.
Yeah, I often describe it as some people sense cucumber, other people sense seafood. It's somewhere it's on that spectrum from cucumber to seafood, if you can believe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is, you know, when you read books or listen to people like Malcolm and I, you have to have a bit of an open mind if an author says this is rather cucumber-like. And you taste it and you go, no, it isn't. But using the English language, if anybody wants to email me and tell me with English words what a cucumber tastes like how do you describe, what does an almond taste like other than you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So we're just trying to put things into the neighborhood. But I would often put the flower tops or the smaller leaves in salads. And I think that, I'm still going to say fishy, that taste breaks down when it's cooked.
Oh, it does.
And it's one of the wild plants that when you find it, it'll be like there'll be thousands of them.
Yeah.
So you can wildcraft very freely without a guilty conscience. I mean, it'll just cover whole hillsides. But shady woods, usually north-facing hillsides, that sort of thing. And I just always think of it as baby comfrey.
Right.
But if you were stuck in the woods, it's for a green plant. I think I'm right in saying it's quite high in protein.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you weren't getting fish or meat or something like that, it would be nutritiously good that way.
To me, it's got a good amount of moisture as well. So it's kind of, again, for a green plant, like slightly hydrating as one eats it as well. So yeah, really nice salad green, good kind of sandwich topper, and depending on the season. So good identifying characteristic. Those drooping flowers, kind of looks like comfrey. It's slightly hairy. It's got a bit of a dog's tongue texture.
As you see with this one, like there's a couple open and then lots of future here. There's some that are buds that are barely coming. So it's in flower for a long time.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to say most of the summer.
Most of the summer.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Do you know the Latin name? I'm not sure if I've even ever learned the Latin name because I tried looking it up in the books.
Oh gosh. We happen to have a book here.
You know what? Because it doesn't list lungwort in there.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not in this one?
So maybe I'll have to go through page by page and oh, there it is. Yeah, I'd be surprised if it wasn't in the book, because it is such a common plant, and it's definitely not under its common name that we know it as, lungwort. And this is the benefit of knowing your Latin names, right? Is makes just narrowing in on.
I should know it. I'm blanking out.
Yeah.
And part of me is going Simbo Pogon. But that might be something else entirely.
So, and it's almost I wouldn't want to put it as far as saying it's slimy, but that moisture, that kind of almost mucilaginous.
That's back to why it's like comfrey.
Right.
Yeah. It's got the mucilage in there.
Okay, cool. All right.
So anything to do with irritated sore throats, that sort of thing.
Right.
Even just chewing it and swallowing it, you'd be getting some of that mucilage, or it could be cooked and reduced.
Right.
Or like made as a tea and reduced.
Yeah, so good for the whole digestive system. And then I guess another identifying characteristic, like fairly, like pronounced veins. Mid-ribs, and then veins coming down.
That's lanceolate.
Lanceolate.
When it looks like a spearhead.
Right. Cool. Okay, well there's lungwort. Awesome. Good edible green. All right, another one that we've got. Let's talk about this one here. So this one is Coltsfoot, or what is known as the palmate Coltsfoot. So palmate looks like the palm, because there's also is it the arrowleaf Coltsfoot? Is another.
Oh, there's lots.
There's lots, eh?
Yeah. And some of they're all used in lung remedies.
Right.
Like comfrey, they contain pyrrolizidine alkaloids.
Oh, okay.
So some of the cough syrups, I've seen this used a lot in Chinese cough syrups, probably all of them that I've used.
Interesting.
Ninjam Pepakoa is one that I've used, and there's one that I forget what the name is, but it might just say sea coconut on the label. It's a yellow box, and we used to call it gorilla's ass cough syrup, because sea coconut in a black and white photograph looks very much like a gorilla's backside.
Right. Okay.
So the different Chinese cough syrups, some work better for a dry cough, some work better more for a mucousy cough, to dry things up. But I've never eaten it, but I think of lung remedies when I see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Several kinds.
I mean, it's edible.
Well, if your lungs fall out, I'll know. If you cough up a lung, we'll know it's very potent. Yes.
Yeah. I was almost having a moment yesterday in the forest where I was like, oh, is this lungwort? It kind of, coltsfoot, but it wasn't. It was like an anemone that looked fairly similar. It had a white flower coming off of it.
Yeah, there's a Western Canada anemone.
Yeah.
And if you compared the two, you'll see they're quite different, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I find this one is generally, like single leaf, like it's not, bushy, shall we say? Like
it can be one only. Yep.
One only leaf.
And you'll find it in extremely moist, like along stream beds and stuff where it's getting a bit mucky.
Right.
Not in water, but kind of where a sphagnum forest would be meeting a creek or something like that. You'll get large areas of it.
Yeah, that's a good description, because when I take people out to Bray Creek, we see this everywhere, and it's moss, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So not fully white and hairy, but definitely a little bit of a texture like that underneath the leaf.
And then just for botany, if it'll hold its form, I'm holding it upside down.
Yeah.
You see how each that's one leaf, so that's palmately divided. That's palmately lobed. And if I just tear each of these till they meet the stem, that's called palmately divided, where each one of these would then be a leaflet.
Okay.
But in this case, because that doesn't go right to the stem,
right.
So this is one leaf. So it's palmately divided, palmately lobed, as opposed to these would all be separate leaves, and then it's palmately divided.
Right, okay.
But both are palm looking.
Palm looking, yeah. And and just lobed, so it's one leaf.
Hi, Mom. Yeah.
Cool. This one you can often find in smoking blends.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hence the lungs, right? I know
Yeah.
Harmonic Arts has a smoking blend that you can either drink as a tea, very good for the lungs, or people who are maybe trying to quit smoking or enjoy smoking. This is a herb that's in there along with mullein and things like that too. Yeah. And then, as you mentioned, the cough syrups as well. Cool. All right. Well, here we have another one here, our Cornus canadensis. This one I know the Latin name for sure, also known as bunchberry. And this time of year it is in flower, so very kind of classic, very distinctive 4 petals to the flower.
So this is, we don't have, this is the same genus as BC's provincial flower,
Oh yeah, what's their provincial flower?
dogwood.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
But dogwood's a big tree,
yeah.
and we only have 2, this little dwarf plant, and then there's, I'm forgetting what the other one is, it's a shrub. But bunchberry was one of the prime uses I think of is, and I don't know how it works, but the whole plant can be eaten as a remedy for a lot of toxic plants, including some of the gastrointestinal toxins that are in mushrooms.
Oh, okay.
So if you're ever in the wood, and it's very common, like throughout the
Really
foothills and the
common.
boreal forest, it's almost impossible to not find that.
Yeah.
If you can't find any, you're probably standing on it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
The root would be the strongest part, I think, for the remedy, but the whole plant can be eaten. The berries, I wouldn't pick them expecting to put them in my Smarties mix kind of thing. They're edible, but
Yeah.
they're sort of an odd version of tart wouldn't be the right word.
They're almost bland. They're all kind of like a juicy mealy, if that even makes sense. Yeah. They've got a little tiny seed.
You see, just chewing on the lungwort has gotten some mucus going in my the Latin version of last edges of a cold. I think of it mostly as that it's a questionable edible, but it's a good one to know for the toxins, and the whole plant. You don't have to. You could just pull them up and get rid of the dirt, or cut the roots off, and whatever you want to do, and eat the whole plant.
Right.
You could eat it raw. You could make a tea out of it,
Right.
or a decoction, I suppose. And the berries are edible, but I wouldn't. And
I find, they're not a bad like trail snack if you're just wanting something to munch on. They a little bit of moisture to them. They've got a crunch.
keep your tongue wet.
Yeah. A little tiny crunch with the seeds. And apparently, I've read in the book that they'll often be added to like jams and preserves as just a filler. Like if you're out and you're picking tiny little strawberries, and you can kind of supplement with a bit of the bunchberry to give a bit more.
And it may be, I'm not sure about this, but it may be like, all over Western Canada, as far as I know, we see the mountain ash trees.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people think those berries are poisonous.
Right.
They're not poisonous. They're just so high in tannins that they would make your tongue would, but they're very good to put if people do a lot of canning. Because of the tannins, if you put, say, in each quart jar of blueberries, you put 1 sprig of mountain ash berries, the berries will stay firmer instead of getting all mushy because they're being tanned, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Cool.
So they can be helpful in canning. I had a huge tree in my backyard that when I brought it home in my shirt pocket, I lived in my last home for about 35 years, and I had all of my native boreal tree favorites like chokecherry and Saskatoon. I brought a little birch tree home. One day we were coming back from fishing, towing the boat on a gravel road. a road that's you got to sort of pull over if you meet somebody head on. You know, it's a little bit narrow.
Yeah.
But I had noticed a bunch of things growing in a bog, and they were on my hit list for a wildflower list.
Right.
You know, I was the like a bounty hunter in those days, where any new flower or anything on the list I got money for.
Yeah.
So I went back later that day or the next day, standing kind of past knee deep in stinky water in this swamp to get pictures of things like bog rosemary
Right.
and a number of other things. But where was I going with all of that? Some of the little things that float in a swamp. Oh, yes. So as I got back to the truck, I noticed this little wee birch tree. It had 7 leaves and tire tracks from somebody probably pulling a boat, because it was a small tire print,
Yeah.
pulling over near the edge, went that far from this little tree.
Right.
It said, I'm gonna die here.
Yeah.
I feel like you would take care of me if you would you take me home and take me home? So I just put it in my shirt pocket, and when I got back to the cabin, I moistened a wet paper towel and just put it in an open Ziploc and brought it back to Calgary.
Nice.
Put it in the backyard, and now it's 3 stories tall.
Wow.
You know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's always fun. Anyway, I had a mountain ash that I did that with along the garage, and if I had lots of extra freezer room, I would take big Ziploc bags and just fill them with clumps of berries,
Right.
in case we had this sort of winter where there wasn't much fruit
Right.
later in the year, just for all of the birds that would sit around. And I would throw whole big clumps of mountain ash berries on the garage roof,
Right.
and they wouldn't be around long.
Yeah.
You know, some of our winter birds would be in there getting them. So if you're a birder,
Yeah.
that's something you might do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of transplanting, from the wild. My yard is just kind of taken off with wild strawberry. It's just all those runners, right? They just start spreading, and it's a great ground cover. We've got lots of mulch in the places where it would have been bare soil, but planting in the wild raspberries that we've dug from areas like this, they just take off. And then you got strawberries as your...
And strawberry greens,
Yeah.
which so many people throw away, are one of the highest sources of vitamin C
Yeah.
that we've got. I think it was Bradford Angier, apologies if I've got that wrong, but he was using one particular lab to test the nutritional value of some of his, as he was doing his books.
Right.
And the guys at the lab, it was so high in vitamin C that they thought he was playing a trick on them, and must have soaked these leaves in pure ascorbic acid just to throw a whack at him. And he just didn't believe the results. So he was having lunch the next day and noticed the restaurant across the street had some of those strawberries in baskets,
Yeah.
And he went over and pinched a few leaves and ran the test again.
Right.
And because they were so fresh, they were even higher
Oh my God.
than the test. So when you buy strawberries, if the bracts, those are the little leaves right under the berry,
Yeah.
if those are real trashy, I'm still going to pull them off. But if you buy strawberries and those are nice and green, don't take them off. They're really good for you. Just eat the whole thing.
So actually, because I remember years ago, probably the very first plant walk I went with you, like I remember that, it always stuck out, okay, strawberry leaves high in vitamin C. And then for years I questioned that. I'm like, really? Like, because if you taste things that are high in vitamin C, like, oranges, tart, right? Ascorbic acid. I'm like, where's that tartness? Where's that flavor? But apparently I'm not the only one that's doubted that. So here we are in the Rocky book. So strawberries, and it says strawberry leaf tea is so high in vitamin C that the first reported measurements were believed to be bogus.
Thank you.
Yeah, just like what you were saying. The leaf tea was used as a tonic, a stomach cleanser, a medicine for fevers, dysentery, diarrhea, kidney problems, and a wash for eczema, sores, and other skin problems. Wow, it said to be one of the best home remedies for diarrhea. Dried ground leaves were used as a gentle disinfectant on open sores, applied as a powder or mixed with fat, and used as a salve.
Well, when I was a kid, there was always in the house medicine chest, there was, it would have been a decoction, I guess, that came in a tall yellow and red box. Yellow, most of the background was yellow. And then there was a big strawberry there, and it was called Dr. Fowler's Wild Strawberry Extract.
Okay.
And that was our go-to for diarrhea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, amazing.
And I hope it's still around, because it was a very effective remedy.
Yeah, Dr. Fowler's. I mean, it made around for that long, but I think, I mean, it seems to have.
So you're on a camping trip. You don't have medicines with you. Somebody's I mean, you can end up with diarrhea just from getting too excited about how many walleye we caught today or stream trout down there and just eat too much fish.
Right.
You know, can give you diarrhea. Just too much good fat in there. But
Yeah.
and it's good fat, but too much is going to give you diarrhea. So it's the roots that are the primary astringent.
Yeah.
And strawberries are so easy to identify. The wild strawberries look exactly like domestics. They're just a little smaller. So dig them up, wash the roots. You're going to have to shake them really well in a stream or even use, well, you're going to cook them anyway, so who cares about a little dirt? But it's the roots that we want
Right.
for the diarrhea.
Yeah, well, not only that, it's unbelievable. Like actually, just reading about the medicine of strawberries. I mean, I could go on and on. So you know, we've covered the vitamin C, the diarrhea, kidney problems, fevers, dysentery. Strawberry leaf tea accompanied by fresh strawberries was used as a remedy for gout, rheumatism, inflamed mucous membranes, and liver, kidney, and gallbladder problems. Stems and roots collected late in the season were boiled to make medicinal teas for healing sore throats, mouth sores, and strengthening convalescence. The root tea was to treat diarrhea and infant cholera. With the addition of yarrow root, this tea was believed to cure insanity. You're obviously not consuming enough. Its cooked strawberry plants were eaten to strengthen gums, fasten teeth, soothe inflamed eyes, and relieve hay fever. Unbelievable. Chemical D-catechin found in leaves is said to inhibit histamine production. Although the leaf tea has little effect on its own, it seems to enhance the action of antihistamine drugs. Strawberry is a good source of ellagic acid, a chemical that is believed to prevent cancer.
Some of the plants that we use, this is going to my essential oil work, I've found that, and I don't know, we might have talked about this before, but somewhere I have a photograph, one of these electron microscope photographs of so-called mast cells. You have many types of white blood cells.
Right.
You know, like there's ones that, some of them actually get rid of bacteria for you by they just eat it. It's a bit like a Pokemon. Was that the
Or Pac-Man.
Pac-Man?
Yeah,
That's it.
come
Yeah.
along
And they can. So they're called phago. That's with a ph.
Yeah.
Phagocytes means in Latin to eat.
Right.
And there's little phagocytes that are, if this is a red blood cell, there's little phagocytes that are only a little bit bigger. And then we have macrophages that are as big as this table.
Right.
So the big macrophages can't get around into capillaries. So those are the ones that we just stage in places like anywhere something is attached to the body, an arm, a leg, even your head. Lymph nodes, the largest collections of lymph nodes, they're all over your body, but we have huge collections of them in the groin area, armpit. So it's kind of like, if we get a really infected wound, we might have to cut your arm off or something, but to try and keep the infection in the arm away from the rest of the body. So in the lymph nodes, that's where stuff is coming to them.
Right.
So it's kind of like they're hanging out in a locker room or whatever, and as blood or lymph is filtered through the nodes, that's where these big eaters are there and just, you know, they can like literally just gorf things. But they also have, and I've got photographs of this, almost like the way frogs can whoosh with a tongue and grab something.
Yeah.
Some of the phagocytes do that too when they're going, hey baby, and they bring it back and absorb it in their chests. And they're quite amazing when you see these in photographs. You know,
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, mast cells, that's where I sidebarred.
Yeah.
So they are made rather like piñatas.
Okay.
And we have them anywhere we're exposed to things, so they're in the digestive tract, but we have lots of them in our sinuses and eye sockets and anything that's open to the outside world. And if a mast cell thinks that you're under attack by something that might harm you, whether that be true or not, what they do is explode. It's just like a kid hitting a piñata.
Right.
And what comes out of it, the photo I have almost looks like a bee or a wasp coming out of a nest. So we've got this big mast cell, and then the stuff that looks like shipping, that little popcorn, styrofoam popcorn we get,
Right.
that's what they look like coming out. So what those are histamine granules.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea is something's hitting the mast cells, whether you swallowed it or it's getting in your eyes, they explode with histamine bombs, and what the histamines do is cause you to produce all the extra fluid. So that's why you get runny eyes
Right.
and all of that. So an antihistamine
Right.
is something that actually works against your immune system to dry up the symptoms.
Right.
And that's what's going on there.
Yeah.
Mast cells.
Mast cells.
So I think, because I've had, I was making oil blends based on stuff I'd read in books and all of that, and I made a thing called hay fever blend, and getting reports back from clients, many of them, wow, some of them, kind of thing, and I got to thinking, how did you use the oil? And it seemed that, and what I ended up recommending was to use the oil before exposure to known triggers.
Right.
So we had, and I don't know, this might have come up in a previous video, oh well, but at one of my weekend workshops, I had about an early 20s gal coming in, and everybody was like, why didn't you stay home? It seemed like she had the worst possible cold.
Yeah.
And she said, no, this isn't a cold, sorry everybody, but I'm staying with my auntie here. I'm down from Edmonton for the weekend, and she's got like 11 cats.
Oh, no.
And you know how cats are. If you're allergic to cats, you're
Yeah.
going to wake up with one on your face, right?
Totally.
They're
They
just
go
like,
right for
because
you.
I'm a cat,
Yeah.
So I sent her home with the oil, and I said, look, used a couple drops of this, what I like to call an airstrike, just a couple drops, and breathe it really deep before you leave your car.
Right.
All right, nice deep, take a couple of minutes to breathe it in deep before you even enter the building. And she came back the next morning and just looked like a sparky, perky 23-year-old should.
Right.
No symptoms whatsoever. And then I thought, well, this actually works because of the way I think, or maybe it's just cat repellent. I don't know. But grain bins are another thing that some farmers are kind of.
Oh,
I'm told
okay.
that if you walked into an empty grain bin when there's lots of dust in the air,
Yeah.
if you flicked the lighter, the building would explode.
Oh, wow.
It's actually flammable.
Right.
But some people, they're going out doing chores around the farm, and they go into the grain bins,
Yeah.
and they get all swollen up. So in my mind, whatever the triggers might be, that some of the plants that are reported as antihistamines, they're actually working not against histamines that are already there. They're telling the mast cells to take the day off.
Oh, okay.
So if you use them before exposure,
Right.
the mast cells just kind of go, oh, okay.
All right.
Because those are usually oils like tarragon,
Yeah.
which are actually anesthetic. When they're
Yeah.
extracted the right way. Like early anesthetics were just all plant-based.
It kind of actually reminds me of nettles in the sense that what I've been told is that taking it kind of spring allergy season, and maybe that's how it's working. It's like, all right, chill out, getting you won't react as much.
It's like toning the mast cells.
Yeah, you kind of take it preemptively. I mean, you can take it more reactively, like
Yeah. I know it
but
works
it's both.
reactively too.
Yeah, as well. Cool. All right, next one I want to chat about is your favorite vegetable of the forest. And of course, we're talking about wood lily. And I don't have an example in front of me, but something that I just found the other day. So I know the
Saskatchewan's provincial flower,
That's right.
Lilium montanum. Right? Everybody knows what that looks like, a wood lily.
Yeah, yeah. Cool.
They're not tiger lilies. They're all lilies, but tiger lilies have spots.
Right.
Wood lilies are just an orangey red color.
Yeah. And are all lilies edible, including the garden ones that people grow?
Yes, with the one exception of a genus called Zygadinum, which
Right.
is death camas.
Okay.
And when you hear the word camas, some people get confused because they're looking at flowers or reading books or whatever. There's another whole type of lily called camas is the common word, blue camas, for example. Camassia is the genus. Camassia quamash with a Q
Right.
is a blue lily that covers huge areas in the BC interior.
Okay.
And it was literally farmed virtually by the indigenous tribes in the interior.
Great.
And they wanted that root
Okay.
because it was really starchy and good.
Yeah.
Flowers were edible. So Zygadinus, there's 2 species in Alberta. One of them is Zygadinus elegans, which is very common out here in the foothills.
Yeah.
That's the white camas. It gets about this high, freely branching,
I see some right over there.
and pretty little white flowers.
Yeah.
And then the other one, which is more of a prairie plant, but occasionally here, is called Zygadinus gramineus.
Right.
Now, you can think, like, what's in a name? Hello, my name is Zygadinus gramineus. Would you like to come in for some tea, my little darlings? So that's one that 1 ounce of bulbs will kill you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And an old friend and my main guru, Terry Willard, had said that all lilies are edible.
Right. Okay.
And I was out on a walk one weekend and picking things, and I said, oh, well, those are definitely in the lily family. I'm going to pick a bunch of those. And I was sitting on the tailgate of my truck going through Bud's Flora.
Yeah.
As I was keying all of them out, and I had a mouthful of the bulbs, thinking, wow, these are pretty good, thanks, Terry. And they're just crunching away.
Yeah.
And then I turned the page, like, did it go to, and I turned the page, so I got in this gramineus. Before I'd swallowed any, I sprayed the whole mouthful all over the forest floor.
Right.
But a couple bulbs aren't going to kill you. But you can tell there's something wrong, because if you chew them long enough, your tongue will start to tingle.
Right.
And I did meet a guy in one of my classes he was doing seismic work up somewhere west of Red Deer, somewhere in the foothills, and they were stream fishing. A couple of them caught some trout, and most of the gang went into town to drink beer, shoot pool, chase women, all of that sort of stuff. And one of them said, oh, here, Glenn, I found some wild onions for you to have with your fish. And he just took it for granted and ate them with some mashed potatoes or whatever.
Right.
And not long after supper, he had blood coming out just about everywhere. He had bloody stool.
Yeah.
And he was coughing up blood, and got himself to the hospital. And they heard the story and did some checking. And he had only eaten a serving.
Right.
And was told that if he had eaten much more, he probably would have died.
Yeah.
So that was less than an ounce.
Right. Wow.
So pick what you want to believe, but
Yeah.
they are very toxic.
Yeah.
And on one of my herb walks out here somewhere during a botany course, I was telling the class that, oh, you see, you could make the mistake and eat some because they don't really taste that bad. And I was chewing it, and then I spit them out. And there was a student whose husband, she called me a day or two ahead and said, Blaine, this weekend's our anniversary, and we've got plans for our anniversary, but I really, really, really want to come on the walk. I don't want to miss class. Is it okay if I bring my husband along? Right. And I said, sure. So sometimes a problem with doing walks, if you have a bigger class, is we might have been talking about this plant, and then somebody, if they're taking notes, and then when they tune in again, because they were talking on the side, then you're talking about a different plant.
Yeah.
And I've heard from Terry that he's done the same thing, looking over people's notebooks at the end of the weekend, with a lot of wrong material.
Oh no.
Because people tune out and tune back in, you know.
So true.
So, but anyway, I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm eating this." And that's really poisonous. He said, "Well, you did." And I said, "No, I spit it out. You didn't see that part." So it's very simple. The Zygadinus plants roots look like little wild onions, I suppose, like green onions.
Yeah.
But they have absolutely no zero zip oniony smell or flavor.
Right.
None. Just zero zip. So it's that simple. A wild onion smells, tastes like an onion.
Yeah.
That's it.
Unmistakable.
Yeah. So if you find, and the other thing is that wild onions, leaves, like a green onion you'd buy at Safeway, are round. They're tubular.
Right.
Right? And even coming out of the ground, the leaves on a camas are kind of a V shape.
I'm going to gonna go grab it. 'Cause you're talking this whole time, and I'm just like, this one is just staring at me here.
Did you get the bulb?
Just about.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say you need a knife or a stick.
Yeah.
But
So look at that. I mean, as you said, looks like a green onion, but yeah, it is almost kind of like V-shaped in that way. Doesn't smell at all like onion. And then there's the flowers.
which are quite pretty. That's why it's called Zygadnus elegans,
Oh, yeah, it's very elegans.
right?
Yeah, so that's a lily, hey?
Yeah.
Technically.
Mhm.
I mean, again, it doesn't look like a lily to me in that sense of what what we're talking about, the woodland lily and those types of things.
Yep.
But for sure, in the family.
Mhm.
And yeah, so
And the most common lily in the foothills is called the nodding lily. The flowers are pink, and it comes up, and then the whole flower thing is kind of nodding,
right.
almost like a little shepherd's crook. Where the most common one in the prairies is a white flowered version, either of which can be erect or nodding.
Oh, okay.
And there's places where I've seen them. One day at lunch when I was teaching at Medicine Hat College, I went outside to have my sandwich and looked across the river. And the entire riverbank, as far as I could see, was just about looking like it snowed. There was just so many thousands of onions covering that bank. But out here, I mean, I remember one Sunday morning with my sweetheart at the time, we had made a little omelet, and I just thought, some onions would be nice, and I just kind of stared at the hillside and quite confidently ran over. It was very nearby. I didn't see them from where I was sitting. I just knew there'd be onions there, and ran over and dug up a few onions. And we chopped them up to put in the omelet, right?
Yeah.
So they're very tasty.
Yeah, totally.
And the entire onions family, including garlic, is very high in, I think there's something like 151 different sulfur compounds, all of which are antibiotic.
Wow.
So if you've got something like a wound or a cut that's getting infected, crushing up the onions from any of these species and making a paste. You could just put, if it was on my arm, I'd make a paste and then put a bandage on to keep it on.
Yeah.
If you've got really sensitive skin and you're using garlic, it might be good to rub a little oil on the skin first, or the skin might blister.
Right.
And that's especially important with children, because making a paste and putting them on the soles of the feet, like you can treat tonsillitis by putting stuff on your feet,
Right.
garlic or essential oils or whatever. But if it's a younger child that doesn't run around barefoot yet or whatever, really sensitive skin, I would rub some oil on first,
Yeah.
and then make a paste, and then very carefully put a sock on, or you might even want to put some gauze first so that you don't smear it all over the sock.
Right.
Or you just, or just make a mess of your bed. Use something so it doesn't just get in as high as your knees. But a poultice that way of any member of the onion family
Yeah.
is a very good infection fighter.
Cool.
And I don't know how people make that mistake, because these just smell like wet dirt. There's no smell there really.
Yeah.
And onions are onions, onions, onions. So it's kind of a goofy mistake.
Yeah. So unless you're picking a whole bunch and it's in there, but even then, again, the leaf structure is so different and distinct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, back to wood lily and other types of lilies.
My favorite vegetable.
There we are.
Period.
Yeah.
Raw.
And we're going to dispel some myths here. So one of them was actually my own little myth. I was under the impression that it was illegal to pick, but that's only in Saskatchewan.
As far as I know.
Yeah, but it is highly frowned upon. I mean, even in the books, and there's this, don't believe everything you read on the websites. But
some people, they're going to pick some flowers, and they don't root that deeply, depending on if it's moist soil. When you go to grab the whole thing,
yeah,
you pulled the bulb out too. Well, of course you killed it, because that's the whole plant.
Yeah,
You're holding the whole thing. Is not just dead. You ate it. You got it there.
Yeah.
So the bulbs are good eating.
For sure.
But it's not going to grow again. You ate it. right?
So you've eaten the bulbs
Oh
yourself?
yeah,
Totally.
yummy, crunchy, sweet,
Yeah,
good.
it's said to have a almost like a peppery flavor. Apparently, the
I
books
don't
say.
remember.
No.
No, they're just good,
Yeah, for
crunchy.
sure. So you would eat them raw. You would
And
cook them.
if you're going to kill the whole plant like that, then I'd eat the flower first.
Yeah.
But then just run your fingers down the stem and all the leaves will come off.
Yeah.
And then you can eat those.
Right.
And they're not as good as the flower.
Yeah.
But if you're just picking the flowers, and because of this, what I think of as a myth,
Yeah.
I've had people treat me disdainfully because I picked some lilies to eat.
Right.
So I staked a few
Right.
and went back the following year and the following year, and they were there quite happily alive and blooming again.
Yeah, totally. So this is the other myth that I read on a website that said if you pick the flowers, it actually affects the life force of the bulb. Doesn't make sense to me. Like, okay, leaves,
A
I get
flower's job is sex, man. That's it.
where the leaves are that creating energy, capturing sunlight, photosynthesis. I get that.
Yep.
And even still, a lot of plants, if they get grazed, if they get picked, chopped, there's usually enough kind of chi in that root that they can kind of maybe poke something else up,
Yeah,
or
that's
last
just it.
another
There's
season.
several stretches when I'll be on my way to L'Orange next week. There's several stretches along the highway there that are just rife with wood lilies.
Yeah.
And those ditches are mowed
Right.
a couple times a year down to a season down to about 4 inches from the ground. So
Yeah.
away with that.
Yeah.
They're always there.
So I would say that probably their biggest threat is just the kind of change of use of the land, right? Areas where they used to grow that's now getting farmed, or like you say, like constantly mowed. You're going to lose it there. And of course, for sure, there's the odd careless person, like you said, that wants to kind of pick the flower, but they uproot the whole thing. But the spot where I was, literally just in the city, I must have been 100, like just within my easy eye shot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like, oh, I don't really want to pick the whole flower, you can also just pick, one of its petals too, and just taste that.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just nice and crunchy and sweet.
Yeah, totally.
Just a tiny bit mucilaginous maybe, but not
Yeah.
in a way that you'd really think about it unless you decided to think about it. They're just
Right.
sweet and crunchy.
Yeah.
You get pollen on your. Be careful about if you're wearing a white cotton blouse or something, because
okay.
you might get pollen on your nose or on your top. And
Yeah.
getting pollen out of cotton is, I'm sure there's ways, but it can be annoying.
Yeah, that was the other thing they said in the book, just reading about the wood lily, that the pollen was actually consumed almost like a seasoning, a topping on food. You'd sprinkle it on things.
I have met women with too much time on their hands, I suppose, that use pansies
Oh, okay.
and any sort of lilies, and somehow they dust them, and maybe they put them in a paper bag that isn't crushed and shake them gently.
Right.
I'm not sure. They must get them coated in icing sugar and then bake them.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
they're in this little, they keep their form that way.
Right.
And they store them in hat boxes and use them for special occasion cake decoratings,
Oh,
like a
cool.
wedding day or something.
Amazing.
So at my first wedding, the cake was fully covered with wood lily flowers.
Oh,
Yes.
awesome. Nice.
Yeah, and no glaze or anything. They were just fresh out of the woods.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you've got a story that you share about being in Saskatchewan, where it's illegal to pick the flower, the provincial flower. You've got a group of Supreme Court or
Well,
they were.
it was the whole bar association.
Oh, the bar
They have an
association.
annual conference.
Yeah.
And they do it up at Waskesiu Lake.
Great.
And I didn't. Excuse me, everybody.
Want some of that drink? Or?
Maybe I should. Yeah, I'm not sick. I think what's happening is that new unit I bought, it's also a humidifier.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's just breaking up stuff with the humid, because I slept in the room overnight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm not otherwise with a cold.
Yeah.
I didn't understand initially why Oh, no. There's a couple drops left. I'm not giving you
Okay. We're just gonna get it out of view for you.
that. I didn't initially understand why the Bar Association wanted to hire me as a... It'd be one of these things where a lot of the people would be golfing this afternoon, or there'd be alternate entertainment.
Right.
Because I've done walks like that for insurance companies even. So tomorrow afternoon, spouses, because it could be male or female,
Yeah.
you can either golf or go see Blaine the Barefoot Herb Walker Man. And I'd get pretty good crowds out for that, just public interest. I might be talking about things like medicinal uses of kitchen herbs you already own.
Right.
Has been a popular topic. But anyway, it turned out that a lot of the lawyers and judges have cabins, especially on islands, and often, sometimes Scotch being part of the picture, weren't paying attention and run their boat onto a reef and were stuck in the bush for overnight or even 2 days overnight, and they thought it'd be a good idea to know what I know.
Yeah.
Right? So whenever possible, if I'm going to a new place, I like to get in there early and pre-hike some of the trails, because we might go that way and see 10 kilometers even and see 16 species over and over again, where if we'd have just gone that way, 2 blocks, we would have seen 100 species,
Yeah.
because there's more variance in the terrain.
Right.
And sometimes, like in our first couple of shows, we only got 6 feet from the car,
Yeah, for sure.
you know? So you just never know where you're... There's useful plants everywhere. But anyway, I had pre-hiked the trail, and I knew that around the next bend, there was a whole hillside covered with Lilium montana. And so I stopped and looked at the group, and I said, I just want to warn everybody, around the bend in the trail, it's my favorite plant, but we're here in a national park and everything, and we shouldn't be picking anything at all. And this plant, I believe, because it's the provincial emblem, was getting scarce in southern Saskatchewan because of something called farming, and it got tilled in, like you were saying, and just
Right.
mushed up. But in the middle of the province, it gets mowed, so it's okay. They keep coming back. And anyway, out here, nobody's harvesting them at all. But so I said, around the corner, I might need a couple of you to restrain me, because I don't want to break any laws here, especially with you as witnesses. So, okay. So we come around the bend in the trail, and this hillside is covered with lilies in bloom, and everybody was oohing and awing. And I looked at one of the judges, and I said, so we're in Saskatchewan, yeah, and so there's a province-wide ban, $500, yes, and I'm sure in the national park that would be extremely higher. And one of them said, well, the maximum fine would be $5,000, depending on how many you were picking, like are you commercial harvesting or what's going on. And I said, well, but what about this? And I had my hands up and wiggled my fingers, and I got down on my knees and just ate a flower. And I stood back up with pollen on my nose.
Yeah.
And one of the Supreme Court judges looked at another one of the Supreme Court judges, thinking, for how much I raved about how good they were, he kind of looked at his watch, and it was getting close to lunchtime. And he said, well, Henry, I don't think there's anything in the legislation about grazing. And the whole group got down on their knees, and gosh, I wish I had a video clip of this, because it was like I invented a new dance. We got 40 people on their knees with their hands wiggling in the air, and then everybody was just wow, and kind of stood up and giggling and rubbing their tummies and all that sort of thing. So
Awesome.
that would be now that we have all the ability, that would definitely be something I'd post.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, maybe I wouldn't, just for their protection.
Right. Yeah. Anonymously, you don't label who they are.
This fly, hey, it's just checking me out. Hey, it's a little wasp of some sort.
Some kind, yeah. I'm just hovering there.
Yeah, it looks like the things they flew in the movie Dune.
Right.
Whatever they were called. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's a little wasp. If you sting me, I've got stuff right in my pocket that's going to take all the pain away. So just leave. Yeah.
Here we are.
We had one of my classes at the house, I wasn't sure what was happening, and there must have been a nest nearby. I think I finally found it under the deck and eradicated them. But wasps are especially attracted to fish.
Oh yeah.
Like when you're, grilling a salmon or something, it's on your plate already. They just really like fish smells.
Yeah.
And we were out on the South Coast River on the Labor Day weekend one day, and a gal and her husband, she's been a horse trader her whole life, and we agreed to do the Labor Day weekend with horses and go up the South Coast River. And I said, oh, Penny is her name. A lot of people out there might know her. And we all agreed that Penny can't cook that well even with a stove, where I can do gourmet on an open fire.
Yeah.
And I know nothing about horses. So you two take care of all the horsey stuff, and I'll take care of food and whatever liquor you want to have along. And we'll have a good weekend. So the first meal, I was grilling some salmon.
Right.
And we were just getting, the wasps were ridiculous. And I saw where I had put the fish's head over there in a large Ziploc bag, and there were several wasps in it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I went over, it was sitting on top of a stump anyway, did up the Ziploc bag,
Yeah.
wailed on it
Right.
with a piece of 2x4 or something,
Yeah.
and then opened it again.
Right.
And came back over, and I did that about 9 times. They just kept
right.
flying in
Yeah.
to the bag, close the bag,
Yeah.
and slaughter them. So I think I must have got the entire tribe,
Cleared them out.
because there was no more of those around. So there's just a
Yeah.
wasp trap idea for you. Put a piece of fish in a Ziploc, and but mostly so. I've tried to convince people, even if they land on you, just stay really calm,
Yeah.
and they'll probably crawl around for a little sniff and then just leave you.
Yeah. Totally. That's what
If
I
you
found.
freak out, some of the pheromones you give off
Right.
are going to make you think they're a threat,
Yeah.
make them think you're a threat. Yeah. So just leave them alone. And if somebody says, but I'm allergic to them, I don't care. Just be really calm,
Yeah.
and they'll fly away.
For sure.
So anyway, there was an occasion when one landed on my wife's face. And I said, honey, just be really calm. And this thing was taking the longest time, and she was being really patient. It crawled around and had to go look in her ear
Oh my gosh.
and up over her forehead.
Yeah.
And she was being good girl. It's been a couple of minutes already. And this thing finally came down,
Yeah.
kind of checked out her nose.
Oh no.
Stay calm, honey. And it was crawling across her lip.
Uh-oh.
And I heard this scream about to come. There was a frequency the dogs probably heard a block away.
Right.
I can't replicate.
Yeah.
But she was just getting ready, and I went, oh no.
Yeah.
As soon as she went into
Right.
scream mode,
Yeah.
just at the exact moment I could finally hear it, the thing nailed her right in the lip. Right? And anti-venom worked perfectly.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
it just reduced, but anyway, but you just got to stay calm. So anyway, one of my helpers and I were talking about this over lunch, and I had a wasp fly up my shirt sleeve, checking out my armpit, and once it got caught, or I moved my arm and it got trapped,
Yeah.
it nailed me with all it could do to my armpit, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I had this class, and a bunch of the students were sitting at my picnic table, and this woman was like, she looked like she was having an orgasm. She was ooh, ah, like she was
Yeah.
having fun. But a bunch of wasps had actually flown under her dress. She had a
Oh,
light
no.
summer dress on,
Right.
and they just found, maybe it was the perfume she was wearing or something,
Yeah.
but wasps had come up her sleeve and up her pant, up the bottom of the dress,
Yeah.
and she got nailed really
Ouch.
bad, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was just screaming and all of the motion.
Yeah.
So we had to take care of her. But if you can just stay calm, they'll likely check you out and leave you alone.
It's always the best. Yeah.
There, I was on a 2-story ladder, which I didn't appreciate at the time when I first was painting all the eaves and everything on my house. And I was right up where there was a big wasp nest inside the attic, but its entrance was about 5-6 inches wide, right where 2 boards met or something. Maybe there was which one, soffits and fascia. It was, anyway, where those boards meet. And I was there and I was holding a thing of paint, and I really didn't want to get stung, and I'm 2 stories up, and I was watching these things come and go, and there was one of them sitting, kind of like this, looking a bit like a pit bull, that was the guard.
Oh, interesting.
Or was there one on each side, maybe?
Yeah.
And they just were sitting there looking out at the world, and they'd kind of march in, and when somebody yelled incoming, and they'd slide to the side, and the wasp could get in through. You have to hover and kind of duck and get in through the little hole.
Right.
And as I was painting with a 4-inch brush, I was getting closer and closer, watching that whole operation. And as before I moved my ladder next, I moved it real close, and I said, okay, if you want to F with me, I'm going to take out your whole family.
Yeah.
Just let me paint. I don't want to harm you. I just want to paint this board. Okay? And I just really projected that thought.
Yeah.
And I think the wasp heard me.
Yeah.
And it let me run that 4-inch brush right under the crack. Like right under its face. And once more on the top board. Right past its little head.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you.
All right, we're done now.
And nothing happened. And I moved my ladder again. But I swear,
Yeah.
if you can just stay calm,
Yeah.
and try and project,
Just no threats here,
even like the deer this morning. We just got in here a little while, and
Yeah.
a young buck just kind of came out of the woods. It wasn't that far away, and I just said hi, and it almost came closer, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It didn't move around. It certainly didn't run away. It was there quite a while.
Yeah.
And we're okay. Yeah, we're nice guys. No guns. You can, and I really think if I'd have pushed it, we might have gotten it a little closer, but it wasn't afraid.
No, totally.
And because we were calm, and it just kind of stuck around for a couple minutes and slowly walked away.
Yeah.
As soon as you get all excited about things, stuff happens.
Yeah.
Right?
No, they sense
So
it,
it's,
yeah.
are we calling it a day?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, totally. All right. Cool. Yeah, I'll post the whole thing, and then I'm also going to chop it up too into little segments about each plant.
And I'm gonna sit in the passenger seat, salivating, thinking about eating wood lilies.
Right. Yeah. Well, we didn't find anything today, but another time, another place. So hope you get out there and apply
A good
some
thing.
of this new knowledge.
Back to that 1 in 20 rule is something I got from Terry years ago.
Right.
It's a place to start.
Yeah.
Is the 1 in 20 rule. If there isn't 20 of something, don't you dare pick even one.
Right.
If there's 20, maybe you can pick one.
Yeah.
If there's a whole hillside covered, depending on the species, have at it.
Yeah.
But even that 1 in 20 rule, if there was a little burst of flowers on a popular hiking trail on a long weekend,
Right.
and somebody picked something like a lily, risking retaliation, I would kick somebody right off the trail.
Right.
Like I would boot a butt. I'd kick them right off the trail,
Yeah.
even if they were some big guy that might beat me up after that. But
Yeah. I'll leave it for
because
others
hundreds
to
of
enjoy.
people are going to walk by and should enjoy that little flower.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
All
right.
right. Well, enjoy. Get out there and apply your knowledge. Everything you learned here. Find those plants. And yeah.
Do your best with the heat.
Yeah. Exactly.
My favorite lawn chair, people spend hundreds of dollars on lawn furniture, deck furniture. My highest recommendation is go to a place like Army and Navy or Canadian Tire when they're on sale, or I don't know, maybe that's all they're worth, but you can get a 1 or 2 man raft for no more than $20,
Right.
and the bow end is higher.
Oh, okay.
I had one for 3 years before I ever put it in water.
Yeah.
But what I would do is put it on the deck,
Yeah.
especially after coming back from a couple of weeks fishing,
Right.
when your front half, or painting a house,
Right.
your front half, it'd be the other way around. Your back, for your painting, half your body is really tanned,
Right.
and the rest of you is white.
Yeah.
So from fishing, I'm really tanned, but like a pike's belly.
Yeah.
The front of me is all white, right? So you fill the raft about halfway with water,
Yeah.
and have your hose handy, unless you're reading a book, on the mist setting, and you just lay there, and it's naturally comfortable because it's like a pillow that you
Right.
get your head on the bow end,
Yeah.
and you can just lay there and tan the undersides of your body.
Right.
And if you're getting a little overheated, just turn the mist on for a while,
Yeah.
and you can spend a whole afternoon. Have some aloe vera done if you need it for afterwards, but
Yeah.
$20,
Amazing.
great deal. And you could still put it in some water and paddle it if you want to,
Yeah. Totally.
but I mostly use mine putting water in them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good one.